Can you imagine losing like billions of shillings just because of mistakes that can be avoided? I want to show you an analysis of how that happens, and probably as entrepreneurs running various types of businesses, we could pick a thing or two from this. So Nairobi is said to be a city that never sleeps. It relies very heavily on public transport systems to keep everything running. And in the midst of all the honking of horns and busting crowns, there's one name that has stood out for its reliability and discipline, and that is supermetro. Recently, supermetro has suffered a big hit in terms of its operations within the city. NTSA suspended them 3 days ago, and it is out of this that I want to show you what is happening, and maybe we can also look at the numbers, because it's normally said numbers never lie. Now let's look at the financial losses that the SACCO is going to go through, or even it's already going through. I'm going to make some very fair assumptions, and these are the ones that I'm showing you now, that the number of buses first are only 500, and the number of seats normally, each bus is normally 33. I also want to make an assumption that the average fare per each trip is 80 shillings. We know during peak hours it could be much higher than that, and it could be slightly lower when it is off peak, and again it depends on the routes that they are. Now the number of trips one bus is likely to make from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is again an assumption of 15 trips. So with those assumptions, let's see how much they make per day. So for each of the buses per day, it makes 2,640. That is 80 shillings times 33 passengers per each bus. And then because each bus will make about 15 trips, for those 15 trips it will have made 39,600. So this is what it will make at the end of the day. It will have collected 39,600. Now if you made an assumption that the SACCO has a total of 500 buses, that means all the buses, the total amount they collect is 19,800,000. So that is what they make in a day. Now what does that mean? So when we look at it, it also means that's the kind of amount that they are making a loss on per day. So if they make 19,800,000 per day, so far they've been suspended for the last 3 days. So if we include those just 3 days, they've already lost 59,400,000, and it is up to today, or rather the 3 days as at the date that I'm doing this recording. The suspension has not yet been lifted, so which means this is likely to go higher. Now the assumption that I'm also making here is it is possible that the NTSA could have its own other delays. Normally it may not just be happen maybe like in a week's time or 2 weeks. At times it can go even up to 30 days. If this were to happen, they'll have lost 594 million if they were to not get that suspension lifted in less than 30 days. So you can imagine what that means for them. And we've not included other costs like salaries, rent, and any other fixed cost, and including the NTSA cost of inspection, because this is not being done for free. So you can imagine the loss if they have 500 vehicles. I went out to do my own research, and I found out actually the number of vehicles they have, the number of buses they have are not 500, it's about 700 plus minus, but it's about 700 buses. Still with an assumption of 80 shillings per person per trip, and for a bus, like we said, it's 33 passengers. I checked one of the drivers, and I understand they make about 20 trips. At times it could be more, but let's also take an assumption that on average it's 20 trips. So if you have 700 vehicles on the road and they make about 20 trips, because they have various routes that they go in based on how they organize themselves. Now let's see how much that is going to be, or how much losses they are making based on that. So again, per bus, each bus for every trip, it will make 2,640. that is 80 bob times 33 seats. And then now revenue per day for the 20 trips will be 52,800. So each of the buses will at least have collected 52,800 for the day. If you take the 700 buses, then that makes 36,960,000. That's the kind of revenue that they collect in a day. Now since they've already been suspended for the last 3 days, like I said during the time of this recording, so what that means is they've lost now this 36,960 times 3 days, which is 110,880,000. So that's what already they've lost so far for the last 3 days. Now again, like we said, in case NTSA takes time like 30 days to do clearance for them, they will have lost this amount, 36,960 times 30 days, which is 1,108,800,000. Now you can imagine that kind of loss, and that's what we decided to do, this kind of an analysis, just for us to have an idea of what it could cost a business if you are not in compliance with what is required. Now, like I said, there are other costs like salaries, rent, and any other, including the NTSA cost of inspection. So all this included, you can imagine what kind of losses they are going through on each day. So let's have that in mind even as we do this. Recent events have cast a shadow over Supermetro's sterling reputation. That is now the NTSA, that is National Transport and Safety Authority in Kenya, has suspended this company's operating license. And the reason is because they've been found to violate multiple safety requirements. For example, it has been said that most of the buses, they have expired permits, drivers are exceeding speed limits on the roads, and even various breaches on labor regulations concerning staff contracts. The rain started beating them when it was alleged that a passenger one time did not pay the amount of fare that was required. I think this guy was unable to raise an extra 30 shillings, and it said that the tout pushed this guy out of the vehicle, and in pushing him, unfortunately he fell and he died. And that now has become such a big scam, and so they are here facing all these issues, and probably that was just what raised the NTSA to start inspecting them, start looking at inner things and things that were not really necessary, probably as they've been operating smoothly in the past. To avoid all these kind of situations, all Supermetro should have done is just to ensure all permits are up to date, enforced strict adherence to speed regulations, and just complied fully with the labor laws. Anyway, as entrepreneurs, I am just hoping that we can be able to pick a thing or two from this. You can see the kind of losses that happen just because of either ignoring or just not complying with the safety requirements of the kind of business you're doing. So whereas this is about Supermetro, think about your business, look back and see what needs to have been done that has not been done, because this is the time to take the lessons and do the necessary. Otherwise, the losses can be so humongous that you even realize what you've been running away from, or what even the little that you've been trying to save by not doing what is required of you becomes so minute. So I hope, entrepreneurs, this is going to be a huge learning lesson for all of us. Let's look at what we need to do and let's do it. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in the next video. Make sure to stay on. Thank you.